Greetings. This is your brother Willie Muhammad, and welcome to another broadcast of I Have a Testimony.
God came to us to seek and to save that which was lost. He raised a man from among us.
He, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, laid the foundation. What I'm doing is something that comes from him through me, and the thing that he uses in me to do the work is my faith in him and the word that he taught. To produce men and women who wanted to clean up their life and build an independent nation for the glory of God.
Today, we are honored to have a guest, our Sister Amina X. She's an educator, an art activist, and a member of the Cultural Revolution, who also teaches art to students at Muhammad University.
Light. What are the 7 elements of light?
Light source, light, mid-tone, highlight, and cast shadow.
Cast shadow, absolutely. Core shadow, highlight. Excellent. I think we got it all, right? Yes. This is such an important concept of any drawing, painting, even in fashion illustration, photography, filmmaking. We need to study light. We need to study shadow, the midtones, all the shades in between, because that's what life is all about, right? We have days that are light, and then we have dark moments, and we have anything in between, and we want to represent that story in our art. All right, so.
Assalamu alaikum, dear sister.
Wa alaikum salam.
Thank you for agreeing to be a guest on our show today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Yes, ma'am. And I'd like to get straight into the interview. There are many who have a narrow view and understanding of the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam. And what I mean by that is that many often think that this way of life and this organization is only meant, quote unquote, for Black people. And despite the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan talking about the diversity of the original family. So this is a 2-part question. First, how did you, being a person of Chinese descent, become introduced to the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad? And the second part of that question is, how and why did you eventually decide to become a member of the Nation of Islam?
Well, first I want to say, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah. Muhammad is his messenger. I further bear witness that Allah appeared to us in the person of Master Fard Muhammad and raised up for us a messenger, Messiah, in the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I thank them both for giving us our divine leader, teacher, and guide, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. In their names, I greet you. Assalamu alaikum. Again, I'm so happy to be on this show, and thank you so much for allowing me to share my story. My story began really, I think, being raised in the Bay Area. As I mentioned in other interviews, I was born in San Francisco, Chinatown, born in the same hospital as Bruce Lee. And I was raised in the East Bay, that consists of Oakland, Berkeley, Richmond. So I was really blessed to be raised in a very diverse environment where I had insight into the beauty and the struggles of different communities. And within that, I developed strong relationships. And through these relationships, I got to see in depth of what goes on in family life, the struggles of everyday life of all different backgrounds. And I saw a huge problem. I had close friends that lost their lives to street violence. I was also going through a tough time in my early life, and I had a community of different communities helping me and being there for me and supported me. And so through this environment, I was really interested on what are the solutions? What are things that we can do as a community to solve the everyday problems? And the the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad seemed to always be there in my life. And the first time I ever heard the teachings was through a cassette tape. A friend of mine came into my apartment and, you know, he was like, oh my gosh, we have to bring a group of our friends. We need to listen to this cassette tape. And I'm like, what is this cassette tape? And he put it in the player and we all sat down and heard the voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan speaking about the injustices and the race issue in America and why. And we sat on the floor for hours listening, just completely in awe of the strength of his voice and what he was saying. And from then on, you know, I went on with my life. However, at my next job, my coworker was giving me really great advice on problems I was going in through my life. And I was like, where do you get this great advice from? And he's like, that's the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. You need to go to YouTube and you look up Louis Farrakhan. And I went on YouTube, recognized the voice I heard from the cassette tape. And I was just obsessed. I was obsessed. I watched all the YouTube videos, all the lectures. And during that time, you know, in Berkeley, there was a great culture that was going on that surround social justice. I was going to Rasputin's on Shattuck Avenue, listening and being influenced by different underground hip hop independent artists that spoke about the teachings, like Brand Nubian, Talib Kweli, Mos Def. And then after I got all the records and CDs, I go across the street to my favorite bookstore, the Revolutionary Bookstore, and learned about Noam Chomsky, Aaron Dottie Roy, these amazing leaders, the Cultural Revolution of Mao, studied socialism, you know, and then so it tied back into what I was listening to with the lectures and all the YouTube videos. So I think growing up in the Bay Area and with just a diverse community and a culture that surrounds itself around social justice, listening to the minister gave language to what I was already feeling in my spirit. Something never felt right. And when I listened to the minister, he put language to it. He put direction and purpose to it. And I never let go since.
Wow, beautiful. And that's something how powerful. I haven't had the opportunity to visit the Bay Area yet, but, you know, from watching interviews and talking to people who are from there, it really shows just the level of consciousness that is in that city and the leaders that it is actually given to us as well. So my second question is, you know, how was your decision received by your family and your friends?
Well, I think family primarily wanted to make sure that I was safe. I think that they saw the Islamophobia, the violence that Muslims was facing surrounding 9/11. They wanted to make sure that I was safe. They weren't quite sure what exactly that I was getting myself into, but they knew that, you know, Amina Lay has always been kind of different and really has her own opinion and stand on her truth. So they kind of respected, most of my family respected my decision, but just made sure that I was safe. My friends that were there from day one, I started to listen to Minister Farrakhan since 2003, and I had friends around that time that saw my interest and supported that. And so they saw my growth throughout the years. They saw me change as a person and as an artist because I was listening to the teachings. So they were super supportive. But when I made the decision to come into the nation, I had friends that were just getting to know me the past like 4 or 5 years. And those were the friends that were kind of, resistant to my decision going into the nation. You know, I had former friends that said that, you know, the minister is racist, or, you know, you're going into a hate organization and things like that. And I just did not have the tolerance to deal with that. And I had to cut them off. So that was a bit challenging, but I had friends from day one and family that were supportive.
Beautiful, beautiful. And, I open up talking about those who view the NOI from a narrow lens. And some of us, even in our, as believers and members, our level of growth and development, some of us have a narrow view of Islam as well. What would you say to those who do so, who have that narrow view of the Nation of Islam, regardless if they are inside or outside the ranks?
That's a really great question. And I did learn of some ideas, surrounding the nation, even when I got in the nation, from believers, and perspectives from outside about how this was a hate group or a racist group and things like that. And I would say to the folks that are in the ranks or even outside to take a closer look at the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, to really spend some time to study what he is teaching, not only hearing what he's teaching, but also look at the way he lived his life and to absorb his spirit, because that will also help with, I say, decolonizing your mind, right? I think that white supremacy is so deep that we have to do the internal work to even receive a universal truth. So I think we all have work to do as far as really detaching ourselves from us being a victim of white supremacy and being more fulfilled in self-love, and recognizing our higher selves when we look at a perfect example in front of us, which is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
And I would ask you this question, kind of relates to the previous question, but more to what guidance would you share with our brothers and sisters of other ethnicities who may be interested in the Nation of Islam, but may think it's just a Black thing and they don't see where they fit in?
I would share with them my story, my journey. I stand in front of them. I bear witness that following the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, studying the words and the mannerisms and the spirit of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has brought me closer to my own culture as a Chinese person, also have healed my relationship within my family. So it is a teaching that improves you spiritually, physically. So if you're looking to know more of who you are, you need to come in and you need to follow our Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Be to align. Thank you, sister, for what you shared thus far. And we also appreciate everybody who's right now tuned into NNV. We're heading up to our first break, so we're going to pause to get some announcements from our sponsors. But we want you all to tune in to hear more of this testimony by our sister Amina X.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps us to highlight solutions for a brighter tomorrow. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Asiatic Minds, online education, helping our children to discover their God-given skills, gifts, talents, and passion that will allow them to see their greatness, as well as the greatness of our people, and upon discovering that greatness, infusing them with the desire to use it for the betterment of themselves, their families, our people, and the world. Call now, 502-219-4848.
This is Sister Sajda Muhammad. We are proud to announce that the Sajda House commemorative Elijah coins are finally here. This priceless heirloom, made from recycled copper from the messenger's home, is now available at sajdahouse.com.
The hashtag Bank Black social media campaign made strides not only in revolutionizing how we bank, but also how we think. The movement inspired thousands of African Americans across the country to transfer or deposit millions of dollars into Black-owned banks. These are banks that will invest in urban communities, employ African Americans, support Black businesses, and inspire Black home ownership. This is a very proud moment for our culture as we are taking small, but significant, steps towards building Black power through Black wealth.
Thank you for tuning in to NNV News. Please share your thoughts with us in the comments section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, National Network View. This is Clifton Muhammad with NNVnews.com.
And welcome back, brothers and sisters, as we continue our interview with our sister Amina X. And she shared some very powerful testimony. And I think it's really good for us to watch this, because I'll share this with you, sister. Hearing the testimony of yourself, hearing the testimony of our sister, I know you probably know Sister Vivian, right? And even hearing the testimony of our brother, Lord, I can't just have this from Chicago, our Latino brother Abel. It expanded my understanding of Islam, and it really helped me to grow. And I'm praying that this does the same for those who watch this interview. You know, in the next question, we saw and we see that there have been some attacks and are some attacks against members of the Asian community that have begun to grab headlines. And as I sat back and I observed the various discussions that were taking place, I realized that there are members of the Asian community as well as members of the African American community who have both been fed false ideas about each other, which impacts our relationship and our view of one another. So this is another two-part question. What would you say are some of the false ideas that the Asian community has been fed regarding the Black community? And also, what would you say are some of the false ideas that the Black community have been fed regarding the Asian community?
Yes, and I'm going to answer that. I just want to piggyback off of what you said and mentioning Sister Vivian. I'm so glad you mentioned her, because once I started to really listen to the YouTube lectures, I'm like, I have to go to the mosque. And big shout out to Minister Key, now known as Minister Sabor in East Oakland. When I first was there as a guest to listen to the webcast, I saw Sister Vivian. You know, I saw her and I was just so happy to see her, you know, and just seeing like, wow, she's in the mosque, you know, and I felt just so much love, and I felt so safe as a woman for the first time visiting the mosque. I was like, wow, I feel protected. I feel safe. I see my sister here. So that's one of the things I want to just really mention that I'm grateful for as part of my beginning experience into the nation. So the East Oakland Mosque, you're part of my heart. But yes, white supremacy has used the divide and conquer to maintain its movement. And one of the biggest things that they used was, of course, as you may heard, the model minority myth, that Asian Americans has fulfilled its American dream. They're not lazy minorities. We're all successful and we all want to be close to white folks. And since we are the good minorities, automatically there are the bad minorities. So you're the bad minorities, you are not as successful because you're not as hardworking, you're not submissive in a way, because look at these group of Asian, they're Asian group, they're a model minority, they're hardworking, they can get up, why can't you? So this has caused a lot of division. This was created in the 60s to undermine the civil rights movement that was posing as a threat to white supremacy. But the problem with the model minority is that it does not show the reality of Asian Americans. We're not a monolithic group. We're not one group that are all successful, hardworking, and achieve the American dream. 27% of Asian Americans live below the federal poverty line. 1 in 4 Asian elders live in poverty. So even though we're seeing attacks on Asian elders, there's a more painful truth of systemic violence that's happening in our communities. It's the highest wage gap in the Asian community as well. And so I think also with the media and propaganda, in film and entertainment, that, Black folks are criminals, and then the Asian are the good minority. This has caused generations of mistrust and pain between the working class American, Asian American, and Black working group. So it perpetuates this tension between us, when there has been history of solidarity between us. So the model minority has served has caused a lot of pain.
And thank you for that. And my question in regarding to that, what do you think we can do to help build a better bridge between both communities?
I think we need to understand both sides. I think that, relationship is such an undervalued tool when it comes to social justice, and relationship really starts with dialogue and conversation. Ignorance and fear is our worst enemy. And that's why I believe the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad eradicates that ignorance and fear, puts in knowledge itself. So these relationships where we can finally talk, where we can have dialogue, where we can start to learn the effects of colonization, Western imperialism, and also, the experience of Black folks in America. We need to understand these two sides and how they are coming into play in the current times. White education has betrayed us. We are learning each other through the lens of white education, of media, of propaganda. I think that we have the responsibility to take time to do the research and understanding each other without those lens. Just like how we're looking at the propaganda, the negative media about our minister, we also need to look at each other differently as well.
Very good, very good. And in addition to this, as well, as I prepare for this interview, I saw on your IG page, I'm a history buff as well, that you had several posts, and you mentioned it earlier, that showed times of historical solidarity that existed over the decades between the Black and the Asian community. And so can you educate our viewers on some examples of this historical solidarity that's taking place between both communities?
Yes, absolutely. I think that we do have to accept that there's work that needs to be done. Is there anti-Blackness in the Asian community? Yes. Was there Asian violence that was committed by Black perpetrators? Yes. However, there has been a strong history of solidarity between these two communities that white education did not teach us. For example, like I mentioned earlier, I was raised in the Bay Area, and in the Bay Area, there's a history of our communities coming together. For example, in 1968, the Third World Liberation Front, the students of Black students, Chicano, Asian students coming together to fight for education that reflects our identities and our culture. The Buffalo Soldiers, the Black American Army Unit that were sent to fight the Filipino War, and realized that while they were fighting a war with the Filipinos, they were like, wait a minute, we're not being treated right in our homeland. A lot of Black soldiers left the American Army and joined with the Filipino Army to fight against U.S. imperialism. Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, when FEMA failed to help with the efforts of cleaning up the community, it was Vietnamese churches that were the place where Black and Vietnamese communities come together to figure out how to help and support each other, and protest against the landfill that was happening in their cities. Because of the neglect from FEMA. There's so much. I can go on and on. W.E. Du Bois from America going to Japan and having friendships with Mao, going to China, the Black Panther Party in Oakland, who was working with the Red Guard Party, who were Chinese youth that were inspired by the Black Party movement. And they were, exchanging ideas on how to fight against police brutality, on discrimination, and helping with healthcare, feeding the elderly and the children and things like that. So there was a beautiful relationship between the Red Guard Party and the Black Panther Party. Huey P. Newton going to visit Mao. Mao writing an 11-page telegram to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, giving support to the struggles of Blacks at that time. I can go on and on. Frederick Douglass denouncing the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882.
Wow.
There's so much.
Now you say you can definitely go on and on, because you just said something that I didn't know. I didn't really know more. No, I didn't know, basically. Can you talk about the 13-page letter that Mao wrote to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad?
Yes.
How people can access that. And even there was I can't think of his name. Our NOI history buffs will know. There was a brother, a Japanese brother, who was very fond of the work of the Nation of Islam, because in the early days, many of the believers were arrested and harassed because they were saying they were part of this Japanese organization.
I believe you're thinking about the Black Dragon Society. Mm-hmm. There was a brother named Satokata Takahashi, mm-hmm. who was friends with our messenger and actually supported financially the Nation of Islam. At that time, the Black Dragon Society had a lot of members all around the world that were fighting U.S. imperialism, and found an alliance with Nation of Islam. And so they were forming a friendship as well. I believe his wife, Sadokata's wife, was a former member of the Nation of Islam, Miss Peril Sherrod, if I believe I'm pronouncing it right.
Wow.
But yes, this is not being taught in our education system. And so I believe we have to take the time and just read and understand that there is an alliance, there is friendships in all walks of life for us.
Definitely. And can you briefly share a little bit more about the letter that Mao Zedong that he wrote?
Yes, it was an 11-page telegram. At that time, Mao was fighting classism. He did not believe in, the working poor being really poor. He wanted equality, and he found an alliance or found parallel movements with the Black American Civil Rights Movement as fighting against injustices and the poor taking advantage, or the rich, taking advantage of the poor. And so he believed that if we support the Black movement in America, we can free all oppressed people all around the world. So he supported the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad in uplifting Black people in America.
Beautiful. See, I'm learning something as well. Now I'll do some more research. So thank you. And for those who are watching, we pray that you're really getting a great enjoyment out of our sister's interview and what she's sharing. And I pray that it is expanding our breast, as Moses prayed to Almighty God Allah for. So we're coming up on our next break, and we'll be right back with more from our Sister Amina X.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download the Final Call Radio app and take us everywhere. On your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also log on to finalcall.com and click the Listen Live button, or finalcallradio.com. Final Call Radio, the official voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam.
Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel at National Network View. I am Willie Muhammad with nnvnews.com.
So we're back, dear family, with our sister Amina X, who's sharing so many jewels, as many people say. So I want to now transition to this. Now, I would like to talk about your meeting with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, a man who you've talked about so affectionately throughout this interview. I came across this picture, and can you share with the audience the background story regarding this picture?
When I was painting that picture, I was in processing class. Again, I've been listening to the minister since 2003, and I started processing class probably about 16, 17 years after that. It took me a while, but I finally got in. And while in processing class, we spoke about Savior's Day. And one of my dreams was to go to Savior's Day. And so also I want to mention, like, during this time, I was also detoxing physically. I went on like more of a vegetarian diet, was eating clean and exercising, just really preparing myself to be in the nation, committed to be part of the nation and do the work. And so when I heard about us going to Savior's Day, I was like, this is my time to really express what the teachings has done for me. And I wanted to show my gratitude to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So I was in a state of really just cleansing my mind and spirit and really trying to communicate with Allah, like, how can I express my gratitude? So that was the painting. The painting is inspired by how listening to the minister has made me feel strong as a woman. He is my spiritual father. He has guided me into a spiritual life and to develop spiritual strength through prayer. So I have a woman who is pregnant and is performing Fajr prayer. And I have the night on one side and the day, and it's coming together. And it really represents harmony and balance of the dark moments in your life and the light moments. I mentioned that in the earlier footage with my students on NFA, using light and dark. And that, you know, with Allah, you're able to create harmony in your life no matter what. And the most powerful thing a woman can do is to be in the position of prayer, and how that expresses femininity in its highest form. And it also represents the womb. It represents the triple darkness. It represents creativity and femininity. I also wanted to represent how the Nation of Islam is also in its womb, and that a nation can rise no higher than its woman. And so I wanted to just incorporate all of this into the painting. And so I was so blessed to be able to do that and express my gratitude to him.
Wow. I believe that you did. And I know you sharing that with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan probably sparked even more spiritual communication and discussion about the actual painting. Were there any words that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan shared with you during that meeting that resonated with you and still, you know, you ponder and reflect on today?
I am still processing and unpacking and going over in the moments over and over in my mind, because I can even like go back and pick up certain things that he said that applied to my life unraveling right now, you know, things that are happening right now. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is happening. And I can think back what he said to me and apply it to what's going on, even what's going on with the Asian community and the Asian hate crimes that was going on. You know, when that was happening, I drew on the words of the minister for strength, but I'm still processing. I know one word, the few words that he did share with me that really resonated with me was that he told me to go back home, go back to my people, and be the best Muslim that I could be. And so that happened way before the news was speaking about Asian hate crimes and things like that. So when he said that to me, and then all this stuff was happening in the Asian community, I realized I was being called. He actually, it almost seems like he kind of told me what's going to happen and what I would need to do. And it's happening right now. Yeah.
Wow. Beautiful. You know, one of the objectives of this show is to have our guests who have had the opportunity to interact with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to come on and testify about the man himself. And I base it off the scripture in the book of Revelation, where it says that the dragon was defeated by the blood of the Lamb and the power of their testimony, right? Because the minister has been demonized and is grossly misrepresented by the media and others. If you had the opportunity to stand before the world and share with them words that can help them really understand who the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is, or qualities that he possesses, you know, what would you say and why?
I mean, I would say simply that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan saved my life, my physical life, and my spiritual life. You know, meeting Minister Farrakhan, there's just really no words to describe it. When you're in front of him, the power that you feel in the most gentle way, the most loving and compassionate way, that he looks at you with so much love and presence. He almost like looking right through you. It's indescribable. But I would say that listening to my teacher, I have, again, felt closer to my culture. I have been able to open my eyes and see more deeper into anything that I'm studying. So I not only feel closer to my culture, heal the relationship with my family, certain things that I realize I need to be held accountable for, but also it got me looking into the history of Islam in China, you know, and realizing like, wow, 30 years after Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings upon him, passed, his uncle came to China to introduce Islam. And it happened right in the city where my family is from, in Guangzhou. And that's the oldest mosque in China. So if I did not listen to Minister Farrakhan, I would not have realized this, you know. So I'm able to do my research and look into things on a deeper level and find more things to learn about. Your world just expands and opens up. Also, you know, when I listened to one of the lectures, I remember the Minister Farrakhan speaking about the Cultural Revolution and the role of the artist. And so he continued to give me inspiration and strength to work on my path as an artist. And, you know, I didn't have the most support wanting to be an artist. And when I listened to his teachings of following your path and standing in your truth, I started to do my paintings on the art of the Cultural Revolution that I'm inspired by. And then I realized when I was painting it, I was showing my dad, and I was like, Dad, look, you know, this is my art, you know. And he wasn't the biggest fan of me being an artist, but he came clean and was like, I was an artist during the Cultural Revolution under Mao. He was a propaganda artist, but he never told me because he was traumatized from being an artist during that time. And so for me to continue to do my art activism, and through my art, it brought me closer to my dad, and it brought some healing conversation between my dad and I. So all this talk with the minister, you know, being anti-Semitic or his hate teachings, this and that, I, as a Chinese Muslim, have more knowledge of self, love my culture, and have a stronger passion to stand on truth and for justice.
Wow, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful testimony. And I thought that was interesting as well, how I liked how in the opening clip, how you related some of the, I guess, the skills of being an artist to the students and relating it back to life with the light and the dark. And I'll ask you this question. So how did your love for art first begin?
My grandmother was an art teacher in China. And so when I was a little girl, when she told me stories, she would draw them out while she was telling me the stories. So I literally saw stories come alive right in front of me. And I saw the power of storytelling. I saw the power of images. So that was deeply ingrained in me as a young girl. And it has guided my career, it has guided my spiritual path. Art to me is the process of spiritual cultivation. And so I see the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan as one of the greatest artists I have ever met. It is in the way that he teaches, it's his as a musician, so yeah, art has been a guiding force in my life that Allah has been communicating to me through.
How would you say you being an artist, how does it help you as it relates to growing in your faith or even in your spirituality as a Muslim?
Wow. Again, art to me is a process of spiritual cultivation. The process of spiritual cultivation is a lot of self-reflection. My artistry really begins before I even pick up a paintbrush or put a pencil to the paper. Art is being able to connect different concepts so we can imagine a better world. Imagination is so important towards our thinking and thinking about what revolution truly means. We have to be able to visualize it. So the process of manifestation, of having a new vision that's never been thought before, and then putting form into it, that is tapping into the God in you. So being a better Muslim means me being a better artist, a better martial artist, a better whatever creative expression that you choose. Your relationship with Allah is the source of creativity, to say be, and it is.
Beautiful. So we're coming up on our final break, and we'll be back with our sister who's sharing a lot, and it's so beneficial, and I'm so honored that we've had the opportunity to have her as a guest, and for those inside the nation and even those outside the nation to hear her testimony. So we'll be right back with our sister Amina X.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps to combat false media. Cash App NNV News.
Asiatic Minds, online education, helping our children to discover their God-given skills, gifts, talents, and passion that will allow them to see their greatness as well as the greatness of our people. And upon discovering that greatness, infusing them with the desire to use it for the betterment of themselves, their families, our people, and the world. Classes begin September 1st. To enroll, visit AsiaticMinds.com. Greetings from National Network View. This week's Final Call cover story headline reads, "Separate and Be Saved. America's race problems and deadly race interactions are growing worse. It is time we leave the children of our former slave masters and 400-year-old tormentors. Separation from whites is the only and best solution to this problem, a serious problem that is rooted in prophecy." This FCM Volume Number 41 edition middle page article by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is entitled, "A Case for Separation." To read more, subscribe to FinalCallDigital.com and tune in to the all-new Final Call Radio. This is the NNVNews.com Final Call Cover Report.
He anointed our head with oil till our cup runneth over. He who, Master Farrakhan Muhammad, that is he.
This is is Sister Sajda Muhammad. We are proud to announce that the Sajda House commemorative Elijah coins are finally here. This priceless heirloom, made from recycled copper from the messenger's home, is now available at sajdahouse.com.
Please make sure you leave your comments and questions in the comment section below. Follow us on Facebook, National Network View, and make sure to check us out on Twitter as well, National Network View. This is Sergio Gutierrez with National Network View, signing off.
And we're back, brothers and sisters, with our final portion of our interview with our sister from the West Coast, Sister Amina X. And you talked about your love for art, and you mentioned also earlier about the Cultural Revolution, and you consider yourself to be a part of this cultural revolution as an artist. Can you talk about more? Can you explain to those who are watching more about what this means, the Cultural Revolution as an artist?
I think I think we kind of have to start to think about the difference between art and like art activism. Art, we can perfect a certain craft or paint pretty pictures and things like that. But when you start to say activism, I think we're adding a different element to it, is creating art that will stimulate the emotional responses, that will start the social change, that will affect us to, to start doing the work. It's beyond just activism itself. Activism is trying to change laws, legislation, but with art activism together, we, as artists, we have a social responsibility to affect the minds of others. In my art classes, I always teach about the power of color and sound and words, how even hip hop is such a powerful tool, and how the enemy has his hold on hip hop. But in the early stage of hip hop, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan had a huge impact on hip hop. The teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad has, when I listen to Public Enemy, when I listen to KRS-One or Brand Nubian, or hearing the minister's voice on these records, it's something about sound and messages and truth that's intertwined that really is powerful. The minister talks about in an interview how Mao was able to unite China on his ideology through art. He had, many may not agree with this, but he had control over theater, music, plays, books that united a people. And the Little Red Book was also an influence of Black Panther Party in Oakland. Authors, musicians, artists, whoever, I think when we're able to deliver a message through art, it's a powerful, powerful tool. So that's why I try to teach my students to tell their story in the most impactful and unique way.
Interesting. Just last night, I was having that conversation with some family regarding my daughter and her artwork, because as I'll connect you with B Mike, but my daughter has just been accepted into this youth group, and that's their focus, to use their art to to talk about and highlight social issues and motivate people to change. And B Mike is that type of artist as well. So to hear you say that is also confirmation. I've seen, you work with the students with the MUI. What have been some of your rewarding experiences with teaching the students at MUI art?
Oh my goodness. It's been my joy to teach at Muhammad University of Islam. I bear witness that the teachings, we are literally raising baby gods. They are teaching me more than I'm teaching them. I'm a teaching artist. So sometimes I create workshops for public schools, and I'm working with Muhammad University of Islam at the same time. And I have to tell you, I see a big difference. I have to share that when I teach at the public schools, it's just not the same. The discipline, even the spirit, the enthusiasm to learn is just, you have to work a bit harder to pull it out of the public school students. When I'm teaching at Muhammad University of Islam, it is just like pure light. It's like this joy and enthusiasm to absorb what you're learning, and then just they have their own way of processing the what you're teaching. And what I really love what we're doing at Muhammad University of Islam is that we have a unique education that combines the teaching with the subject, you know, and we're all tying it together in you know, with a universal truth. And it's just so beautiful. It's a joy. So yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. It's and it's interesting, you know, you probably aware of this as well, that there's an effort to kind of like limit art education in the school system. What do you see as the harm of that?
It's great harm in that. I mean, as you can see with, you know, Jay Electronica, Busta Rhymes, starting to put the teachings into the music, you know, people are looking into what is the Nation of Islam about. You know, there's so much power in art. I mean, just a little bit of history before we close out. There was a book called Uncle Tom's Cabin. That book was translated and it was read by, I think, around like 1960s in China. And when Chinese folks was reading about that book, they felt like they were going through similar struggles with Blacks in America. And so they started to really research what was going on in America and the racism and the injustices that was happening. And that was just through a book that was translated. So there was a form of like a shared values of trying to fight against oppression and injustices and looking into the struggles of Blacks for leadership when it comes to that. So our authors, our musicians play such a profound role in dismantling white education. We're able to learn about each other through a universal language, through color and sound, beyond you know, titles and status that white supremacy always puts in place. So we're able to come and communicate together.
And it is, you know, and like you talked about, and the enemy understands the power of art and entertainment and stuff like that. That's why they work so hard to actually control it. And so the last question is, was there anything you wanted to share that you did not get the opportunity to share? If so, you know, please feel free to do so now.
I want to share that I think one of the teachings that really, when I was in processing, I mean, I've always listened to the YouTube videos and things like that, and you know, valuing the women, and that's all beautiful. But I love coming into the nation and really starting to see the deeper levels of the teachings. I think one that really resonated with me is that, you know, what is the population of the original nation in the wilderness of North America and all over the planet? You know, the population is 17 million with 2 million is in India. So I'm like, oh my gosh, and all over the world is 4,400,000,000. So I'm thinking we have a family. We are connected, you know. And so the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us the knowledge of self that went beyond transactional solidarity. And during this time, I want to share that I have friends in the Asian community that are fighting for solidarity, fighting against war, imperialism, colonization, and doing the work in solidarity with the Black community. There's a group called Koreatown for Black Lives in Los Angeles. You know, first of every month, they're collecting supplies and donating it to communities in Watts. Connie one of my great friends, her organization called AAPI Women Lead, who's been working for years with the Black community in fighting against injustices. Eddie Zhang with New Breath Foundation, he creates events where Asian food, Asian music, Asian culture with Black food and music and coming together so we can really exchange ideas and have a dialogue, and it starts there. So I hope that we can see beyond our own personal experiences, and that we don't use generalization and stereotypes for the whole group of people, because there's beautiful movements that are currently happening.
No, that's beautiful, and I'm glad that you shared the names of those organizations and the work that they're doing, so I myself can go and research them and familiarize myself with what they're doing, and also those who are actually viewing this, because that helps us to begin to start building these bridges that we talked about, and it's so key. So, sister, we thank you for what you shared. I really, really enjoyed this interview. It's a very historic interview, and it's a very, to me, it's a very educational interview, and it'll go a long way in helping many of us to grow in our Islam and our understanding. Because think about when the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad began to start setting up temples in Mexico, and they asked him, "What are you going to teach?" And he said, "I'm going to teach them the same thing." And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and some of his lectures, when you go back and listen to, he throws things out there that's trying to get us to grow and understand, to understand the universal application of the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad to grow out of the baby stage. And I think that, that is something that we need. And I think your interview and what you share helps those of us who are willing to learn to do so.
Praise be to Allah. Thank you so much for even allowing me to come here and share my story. I'm a fan of your show. Thank you for the work that you do. Yes, I thoroughly enjoyed myself. Thank you.
Ma'am. Thank you. So may Allah continue to bless you, and thank you again.
As well. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. So for you all who are actually watching, we pray that you had the opportunity to hear some of our sister interview, but we also pray that you have the opportunity to go back and watch the interview in its entirety, and you share it with others, share it with those who are in the nation and those outside of the nation. So what we're going to do, family, we're getting ready to go to our actual close, and we're going to talk about some of our closing announcements, right? And right now I'm actually doing this from a hotel room. We're actually evacuating from this storm, but we're going to make it happen. This station in NNV is so important. So let's get to what we have here. We're thankful for all of those who are constantly donating to our effort. Continue to donate. We want to put this mosque mortgage to sleep, to rest, to reduce, to eliminate it. So continue to give. You see the information there. In addition to that, if you or your family member are in need of prayer, send us their name so we can actually pray for them and pray for you. And lastly, you see the books that I have here. Go online and get you a copy of the books that we actually have and what we're doing. And now, those are the books, family. Go ahead and support and support your brother. And we thank you all, and make sure you tune into next week. This is your brother Willie Muhammad with National Network View. Peace.
God came to us to seek and to save that which was lost. He raised a man from among us.
He, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, laid the foundation. What I'm doing is something that comes from him through me, and the thing that he uses in me to do the work is my faith in him and the word that he taught. To produce men and women who wanted to clean up their life and build an independent nation for the glory of God.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps to combat false media. Cash App NNV News.